Was useless. A princess who couldn't secure an alliance was a failure. You must think I'm pathetic, she muttered. Ryan frowned. Why would I think that? She gestured at herself. I am small, weak, no one wants me. My own father looks at me like I'm a disappointment. Ryan was silent for a moment, then, to her surprise, he laughed. Vela's cheeks burned. Why are you laughing? Because Ryan said, grinning. You're talking like those other aliens are the smart ones, but let me tell you something, princess, they're idiots. Va blinked. Excuse me. Ryan leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. They look at you and see someone small, someone weak, but you know what I see? Someone who hasn't given up, someone who walked out of that fancy hall with her head held high even when everyone was judging her. That's not weakness, princess. That's strength. Vela stared at him, her heart pounding. No one had ever said something like that to her before. Ryan stood up and stretched. Look, I should probably get going before someone sees me talking to royalty and decides to throw me out in airlock, but if you ever need something fixed, I'm your guy. He gave her a playful salute and turned to leave. Ryan, Vela called. He paused. Glancing over his shoulder, she hesitated, then said softly, thank you. Ryan smiled. Anytime, princess. As he walked away, Vela sat there feeling something new inside her, a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone after all. For the next few days, Princess Vela couldn't stop thinking about Ryan. His words kept echoing in her mind. There. Idiots, you haven't given up that strength. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. No one had ever looked at her and seen something other than weakness. She had spent her whole life being told she wasn't good enough, yet a human, a simple mechanic, had looked at her and said she was strong. It was strange. She wanted to see him again. Late at night, when most of the palace was asleep, slipped out of her chambers. She had never done anything like this before. A princess was not supposed to wander alone, especially not in a place filled with alien traders, workers and mercenaries, but she didn't care. She needed to talk to Ryan again. Vela moved carefully through the corridors, avoiding the palace guards. Eventually she reached the lower levels of the station where the workers and engineers lived. Unlike the royal halls, this place was dimly lit and smelled of metal and grease. The sound of machinery hummed in the air. She stopped at a doorway where a flickering sign read, mechanical repairs open when I feel like it. Vela hesitated, then knocked. For a moment there was no answer. Then the door slid open and Ryan stood there wearing a grease-stained shirt and looking half asleep. Princess, he said, blinking in surprise, didn't expect to see you here. Vela crossed her arms. You're supposed to say Your Highness. Ryan smirked. Nah, that doesn't sound right. Va rolled her eyes. Are you going to let me in or not? Ryan stepped aside. Be my guest. The room was small, cluttered with tools, engine parts and half-finished machines. There was a small cot in the corner and a table covered in blueprints. It was nothing like her royal chambers, but it felt real. Vela sat on the only chair, looking around. Your room is messy. Ryan shrugged. I call it organized chaos. He grabbed a rag and wiped his hands. So what brings a princess to my humble workshop? Vela hesitated. She wasn't sure how to explain it. Finally she said, I wanted to talk to you again. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Didn't think royalty would have time for a lowly mechanic like me. You're not just a mechanic, she said without thinking. Ryan tilted his head. No, she looked down. You're the only person who doesn't treat me like I'm useless. Ryan was silent for a moment, then he pulled up a crate and sat across from her. You know, back on Earth people used to think humans weren't special. Other species look at us and see a weak race, not as strong as the Drask, not as advanced as the Scythe, not as disciplined as the Ironclads, but you know what? That never stopped us. Va listened closely. Ryan continued. We survived, we built, we explored, and when people told us we couldn't do something, we did it anyway. You remind me of that, princess. You've got that same spark. Vela's heart tightened. But what if I fail? What if I can never be what my people expect me to be? Ryan leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Then forget their expectations. Be what you want to be. Vela had no response. No one had ever told her she could choose. For a long time they just sat there, the hum of the station filling the silence. Then Ryan clapped his hands together. Well, since you're here, want to see something cool? Vela frowned. What is it? Ryan reached under the table and pulled out a small sleek-looking device. It was made of metal with glowing blue lines running along its edges. It's a power stabilizer, Ryan said proudly. I built it myself. Makes old engines run smoother. Could save ships a fortune in fuel. Vela leaned closer, curious. And you made this? Yep, took me months to get it right. She studied the device, then looked at Ryan. You're smarter than people think. Ryan grinned. So are you, Princess. Vela felt warmth spread through her chest. No one had ever talked to her like this. No one had ever made her feel like she mattered. Maybe, just maybe, she had found a real friend. Princess Vela had never snuck out of the palace before, but after her visit to Ryan's workshop she found herself doing it again. It became a habit. Late at night, when the station was quiet, she would slip away from her royal chambers and find her way to the lower levels. Each time Ryan would greet her with the same amused smirk. Back again, princess, and each time she would roll her eyes and sit on the old crate in his workshop. Their conversations were different from anything Vela had ever known in the palace. Everything was about duty, status, and alliances, but with Ryan things were simple. They talked about strange human customs, funny stories from his travels, and the little machines he built from scrap parts. For the first time in her life, Vela could just be herself. One night Ryan tossed her a small metal tool. Here, he said, hold this. Vela caught it. Something close to respect. Va held on to Ryan's arm, relief flooding her face. You won, she whispered. Ryan smirked. Told you I had a plan. Above them, King Orvis stood from his throne, his expression unreadable. The crowd slowly quieted, waiting for his final judgment. The king stepped forward. Ryan, you have done what no other alien has. You have fixed what our best engineers could not. You have survived trials meant to break you, and today you prove that you are not just skilled but also honorable. Vela's heart pounded. Was he finally accepting Ryan? The king's sharp gaze moved to his daughter. Vela, you have always been stubborn, but I see now that your heart has chosen wisely. Vela gasped. Was this real? Was her father actually accepting Ryan? The king turned to the crowd. I, King Orvis of the Xeon Empire, recognize Ryan as a worthy warrior. He has earned our respect. The audience erupted into cheers. Even the raiders, once doubtful of humans, nodded in approval. Vela grabbed Ryan's hands, her eyes shining. You did it. My father accepts you. Ryan chuckled. Took him long enough. The cane wasn't finished, however. His voice turned serious. Respect is not the same as permission. The crowd fell silent again. Ryan raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? The king's expression hardened. I acknowledge your strength, but that does not mean I will simply give my daughter's hand to you. If you truly wish to be with Vela, then you must prove your commitment. Ryan sighed. All right, what now? Another fight, a race through a black hole. The king shook his head. Nothing of the sort. This final trial is not about battle, it is about choice. Vela's breath caught. Father, what are you saying? The king gestured to a royal attendant who stepped forward holding a golden key. This key unlocks a starship, the king said, a fully repaired advanced human vessel. It is yours, Ryan. With it you can return to your people, live among humans again, and be rewarded as a hero. Ryan frowned, and the catch? The king's eyes darkened. If you take the ship, you must leave Vela behind. Vela's heart stopped. No, she whispered. The king ignored her. But if you choose to stay, his ship will be destroyed. You will never return to Earth. You will remain in our empire forever. A heavy silence filled the arena. Vela turned to Ryan, panic in her voice. You don't have to do this. I don't need a test to prove you care about me. Ryan didn't answer immediately. He looked at the golden key in the attendant's hands, then at Vela. He thought of Earth, his home, his people, everything he once knew. Then he looked at her. Vela, the tiny alien princess who had been rejected by the entire galaxy except him. Ryan smiled. His choice was already made. Without hesitation he turned and punched the golden key, shattering it into pieces. Gasps filled the arena. Vela's eyes widened. Ryan shrugged. Didn't need it anyway. For the first time in his life, King Orvis looked surprised. Then slowly the king smiled, a rare proud smile. You Are either very foolish or very brave human. Ryan grinned a little of both. The king turned to the crowd. Ryan has made his choice. From this day forward he is no longer just an outsider, he is one of us. The crowd cheered louder than ever. Before Vila didn't care about the audience, she threw herself into Ryan's arms, her voice filled with happiness. You stayed, she whispered. Ryan held her close, smiling. Of course I did. You're stuck with me now, princess. Vila laughed, the happiest she had ever been. Above them King Orvis watched, his expression thoughtful. He had tested Ryan in every way possible, and now he finally understood. Humans were not weak, they were not lesser, they were something far rarer. They were loyal, and in the vast galaxy where loyalty was scarce, that made them the most valuable of all. The end. Awkwardly, what is it? A hydro spanner helps tighten loose bolts. He gestured to the engine part on his workbench. You want to learn how to fix things? Vela hesitated. I've never done anything like this before. Ryan grinned. That's the best time to start. She bit her lip but moved closer. Ryan guided her hands, showing her where to tighten the bolts, how to adjust the circuits. At first she fumbled, but Ryan was patient. You're not bad at this, he said after a while. Vela gave him a doubtful look. You're just saying that. Ryan chuckled. Nope, you learn fast. A small smile formed on Vela's lips. No one had ever praised her for something other than being a princess. It felt nice. Just as she was about to respond, a loud voice echoed from outside. Hey, who's in there? Vela's heart froze. Guards. Ryan reacted quickly. He grabbed her hand and pulled her behind a stack of crates. The door slid open and a Lyrian guard stepped inside, his eyes scanning the workshop. Ryan stood up casually, wiping his hands on a rag. Something I can help you with? The guard narrowed his eyes. Have you seen anyone suspicious? A royal order has been given. No one is allowed near the lower levels without permission. Ryan shrugged. Just me and my machines. The guard stared at him for a moment, then stepped back. Be careful, human. If we catch anyone sneaking around, there will be consequences. The door slid shut. Vela let out a shaky breath. That was close. Ryan smirked. You like living dangerously? Huh? Princess Vela shook her head, but she couldn't help smiling. I should go before they realize I'm missing. Ryan nodded. Be careful, Vila. It was the first time he had said her name instead of calling her princess. Her heart skipped a beat as she left the workshop. She couldn't help but think maybe strength wasn't just about power or battle skills. Maybe strength was also about fighting for what made you happy, and for the first time in her life she felt strong. Vela's heart raced as she hurried back to the palace. The encounter with the guard had shaken her. If they had found her in Ryan's workshop, the consequences would have been severe. Still, she couldn't ignore the excitement buzzing inside her. Being with Ryan, learning from him, talking to him, it was different from anything she had ever known, but she wasn't careful enough. The next morning her father, King Orvis, summoned her to the royal hall. His expression was unreadable as he sat on his grand throne, his piercing eyes locked onto her. Around him noble advisors and generals stood in silence. Vila, the king said, his voice cold. Where were you last night? Vila's stomach twisted. She knew lying wouldn't help. I went for a walk. The king's gaze hardened. A walk? He leaned forward. Do you take me for a fool? Vila clenched her fists. I just wanted to breathe, to think. One of the advisors, a tall alien with sharp silver horns, stepped forward. We received reports of a human mechanic seen wandering near restricted areas. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Princess Vela's pulse quickened. They knew. She swallowed. What does it matter if I speak to a human? The room fell silent. The king's expression darkened. It matters, because you are my daughter, a princess. Your actions reflect on this kingdom. Vela lifted her chin. Ryan isn't dangerous, he's kind, smart. He enough. The king thundered. His voice echoed through the hall. You are royalty. You do not lower yourself to speak with common workers, especially not a human. Vela's nails dug into her palms. So what if he's human? He treats me like a person, not just a tool for politics. Gasps filled the room. No one spoke to the king like that. The king's face twisted in anger. You are a fool if you think a human can ever understand our ways. They are unpredictable, weak and reckless. Vela shook her head. No, they're different, and maybe that's not a bad thing. The king Slammed his fist on the armrest of his throne. You will stay away from him, do you understand? Vela's chest tightened. What if I refuse? The king's expression turned ice cold. Then I will ensure that the human is removed from this station permanently. Vela's breath caught. She knew exactly what that meant. Ryan would be exiled or worse. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself to stand tall. I understand, she said through gritted teeth. The Kane waved his hand. You are dismissed. Vela turned and left the hall, her heart pounding. She had to warn Ryan that night. Vela slipped out of the palace once more, but this time her steps were hurried, her mind racing. She reached Ryan's workshop and knocked urgently. The door slid open and Ryan frowned at the sight of her. Vela, you okay? She stepped inside, shutting the door behind her. No, I'm not okay. Ryan crossed his arms. Let me guess, your father found out? Vela nodded. He threatened to get rid of you. Ryan sighed. Yeah, that sounds about right. You have to leave, Vela said, her voice shaking. They'll come for you if you stay. Ryan studied her face for a long moment. And what about you? Vela looked away. I'll be fine. Ryan shook his head. No, you won't. Vela clenched her fists. I don't have a choice. Ryan exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. Okay, then let's make a new choice. Va blinked. What? Ryan grinned. If they want to separate us, let's make it difficult for them. We find a way to change the rules. Vela stared at him. How? Ryan leaned in, his eyes shining with determination. We proved them wrong. A spark ignited in Vela's chest. Maybe Ryan was right. Maybe it was time to stop running. Vela sat on a crate in Ryan's workshop, her mind racing. Her father had ordered her to stay away from Ryan, and if she disobeyed, Ryan would be exiled or worse. But Ryan wasn't afraid. Instead of running, he wanted to prove that humans weren't weak, that they weren't unworthy. But how? Vela asked, frowning. My father won't change his mind just because we ask him to. Ryan leaned against the workbench thinking, we don't ask, we show him. If I prove that I'm useful, that I'm more than just some mechanic, he'll have to reconsider. Vela tilted her head. How? Ryan grinned. By fixing something no one else can. Vela's eyes widened. The royal warship, she whispered. The solar Fong, her father's personal battleship, had been grounded for months. Its power core was unstable and none of the engineers could repair it without risking an explosion. If you fix it, Vela said slowly, my father won't be able to ignore your skill. Ryan smirked. Exactly. Vela hesitated. But it's dangerous if something goes wrong. Ryan shrugged. Then I'll go out with a bang. Va glared at him. That's not funny. Ryan chuckled. Relax, princess, I know what I'm doing. She sighed, then stood up. All right, but we have to be careful. If anyone sees us working on the ship, they'll stop us. Ryan nodded. Then we work fast. That night Vela led Ryan through the palace's lower hangar. The solder Fong sat in the middle of the docking bay, its sleek black hole gleaming under the dim lights. Guards patrolled nearby, but Vela knew their schedule. She waited for the right moment, then signaled to Ryan. They slipped inside the ship through a maintenance hatch. The air inside was thick with the scent of burned circuits. The power core chamber flickered with unstable energy. Ryan whistled. Yeah, this thing's a mess. Vela crossed her arms. Can you fix it? Ryan cracked his knuckles. Give me 2 hours. He pulled out his tools and got to work. Sparks flew as he carefully rewired the power core, adjusting energy stabilizers and replacing faulty circuits. Vela watched, both nervous and amazed. For someone her father called weak, Ryan worked with absolute confidence. His hands moved quickly, his mind sharp as he calculated every move. Vela found herself admiring him as time passed. The core's energy flow started stabilizing. The once flickering lights of the ship glowed steadily. Ryan wiped his forehead. Almost done. Suddenly footsteps echoed outside the hatch. Vela's heart stopped. The guards, she whispered. Ryan glanced at the half-finished repair. I just need 5 more minutes. Vela took a deep breath. I'll distract them. Before Ryan could protest, she slipped out of the ship and walked straight toward the guards. Princess, one of them frowned. Unreadable, but his sharp eyes studied Ryan carefully. So, the king said his Voice deep and controlled, you claim to have repaired my worship. Ryan shrugged, didn't claim it, just did it. Murmurs ran through the room at Ryan's casual tone. No one spoke to the king like that. Vela tensed. Ryan, please don't push him. The king leaned forward. I have dozens of skilled engineers, none of them could fix it, and yet a human did. Ryan crossed his arms. Doesn't matter what species I am, what matters is skill. The king's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Then let's test that skill. Vela stiffened. What do you mean? The king stood. If this human is as capable as you believe, princess, let him prove it in a real challenge. He looked at Ryan. You have one day to prepare. Tomorrow you will face a trial of skill and survival. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Sounds fun. What's the challenge? The king smirked. You will repair a damaged ship while piloting it through an asteroid field. Gasps filled the throne room. Vela's eyes widened. That's dangerous. The king ignored her. If you succeed, I will reconsider my judgment on humans. If you fail, he let the words hang in the air. Ryan met the king's gaze without fear. All right, I'll do it. Vela grabbed his arm. Ryan, you don't have to. He gave her a small smile. I got this, princess. But Vela wasn't sure, because this wasn't just a test, it was a trap. The trial begins the next day. Ryan stood in the cockpit of a small, heavily damaged starfighter. Its controls were barely functional. Its power core flickered weakly and several thrusters were offline outside the ship. The asteroid field loomed, massive rocks tumbling through space, colliding violently. Vela stood in the observation deck, her heart pounding. The challenge was impossible. Even a skilled pilot would struggle to navigate through that field, let alone while making repairs. The king sat beside her, watching with an unreadable expression. This is madness, Vela whispered. The king replied calmly, if the human is as special as you claim, he will survive. Vela clenched her fists. Ryan's voice crackled over the speakers. All right, let's see what we're working with. The ship's engine sputtered as he pushed the throttle, guiding the broken ship into the asteroid field. The trial had begun. Ryan's fight for survival. The moment Ryan entered the asteroid field, alarms blared. A massive rock spun toward him. Ryan jerked the controls, barely dodging. Yeah, this is going to be fun, he muttered. The ship shook violently. The damaged systems struggled to hold together. Ryan pulled out his toolkit and started rewiring the power circuits. While still flying the ship, VA held her breath. Come on, Ryan. Suddenly a warning flashed. A thruster had failed. Without it he couldn't steer properly. Ryan grabbed his communicator. Vela, I need a power boost to the left thruster. Vela turned to the engineers. Help him. The king raised a hand, stopping them. No assistance, he must do this alone. Vela gritted her teeth. Ryan exhaled. All right, guess I'll fix it myself. He grabbed a wrench and crawled into the maintenance panel while the ship spun dangerously through the asteroid field. With one hand he held onto the ship's frame, with the other he rewired the thruster. Asteroids whizzed past. One clipped the ship's wing, sending it into a spin. Ryan gritted his teeth. Almost there, the thruster roared back to life. Ryan scrambled back to the controls and pulled up just in time to avoid smashing into an asteroid. VA gasped. He did it. The ship shot out of the asteroid field, engine stable. The challenge was over. Ryan had won. The king's decision. Ryan landed the ship and stepped onto the platform, dusting off his jacket. The room was silent. Then slowly the king stood. You are reckless, the king said. You are stubborn and you are not afraid to challenge power. He studied Ryan for a long moment. Perhaps humans are not as weak as I thought. Vela's heart soared. But the king wasn't finished. You have proven your skill, but that does not mean I will accept you by my daughter's side. Vela's breath caught. One final test remains, the king declared. Ryan smirked. Bring it on. Vela looked at Ryan, her heart pounding. Whatever the next challenge was, they would face it together. The throne room was silent. After the king's declaration, Ryan had survived the impossible asteroid trial, proving his skill, but the king still wasn't convinced. VA clenched her fists. What more does my father want? Ryan, however, looked calm as ever. He crossed his arms and smirked. All right, your Majesty, what's next? The king's piercing gaze didn't waver. Strength is not just About skill or intelligence, it is also about loyalty and sacrifice. He turned to his guards and gave a signal. 2 warriors stepped forward dragging a metal cage inside a small alien creature. Trembled in fear. A Zelvan pup, rare and valuable. Vela gasped, "Father, what is this?" The king ignored her. He focused on Ryan. "This pup belongs to the warrior clans. It was stolen by space raiders and now they demand its return." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Sounds simple. Give it back." The king's expression darkened. "The raiders are ruthless. They demand more than just its return. They want a trial by combat, a duel against their champion." Murmurs spread through the court. The raiders were known for their brutality. Their warriors were giants trained from birth to fight. Ryan tilted his head. "Let me guess, you want me to fight him?" The king nodded. "If you win, the pup is freed and the raiders will owe us a favor. If you lose, well, you will not leave the arena alive." Vela's heart pounded. "Father, this is insane. Ryan is a mechanic, not a warrior." Ryan chuckled. "Hey, I take offense to that. I can throw a punch." Vela turned to him, eyes wide with worry. "Ryan, this is different. Those raiders don't fight fair." Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder and gave a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, princess, I'll figure something out." Vela felt fear tighten her chest. He's not taking this seriously, but it was too late. The challenge had been set. The fight would happen at dawn, the arena of blood. The next morning the grand arena was packed with nobles, warriors and raiders. The massive structure echoed with cheers and roars of excitement. Vela sat in the royal balcony, her hands clenched into fists. She had tried all night to convince her father to stop this madness, but he refused. Ryan stood in the arena, rolling his shoulders. Across from him the raider champion entered. The crowd fell silent. The champion was a towering beast, 7 feet tall, covered in scars, with arms as thick as tree trunks. He carried a huge energy blade, its blue glow crackling in the air. Ryan exhaled. "Yeah, okay, he's big." The king's voice boomed across the arena. "The rules are simple. The fight continues until one warrior is unable to stand." "Begin." The raider lunged without warning. Ryan barely dodged as the energy blade slashed through the air, leaving a deep cut in the arena floor. The crowd roared. Vela's heart stopped. "Ryan, please be careful." Ryan scrambled back, thinking fast. He couldn't overpower the raider, but he could outsmart him. The raider swung again, but Ryan ducked, sliding between the warrior's legs. He grabbed a handful of sand from the ground and threw it into the raider's eyes. The raider roared, blinded for a moment. Ryan took his chance. He grabbed a loose piece of metal from the arena floor and jammed it into the raider's armor joints. The champion stumbled, his movement slower. Ryan smirked. "Big guy, bad balance." The raider, furious, swung wildly, but Ryan dodged each attack, making him angrier. Vela's eyes widened. "He's making him waste energy." The raider panted, his swings becoming sluggish. Ryan saw his opening. He leaped forward and struck the raider's knee with all his strength. The warrior collapsed, struggling to rise. Ryan stepped forward and placed a foot on the raider's chest. The crowd fell silent. The king stood. "Finish him." Vela's heart sank. She knew this was the real test. If Ryan killed the raider, he would win, but if he refused, Ryan exhaled and stepped back. "Nah, not my style." Gasps filled the arena. The king's eyes narrowed. "You refuse?" Ryan shrugged. "He's beaten. No need to kill him." The raider's leader stepped forward, studying Ryan. Then he laughed. "This human fights with honor. We respect that." The raiders bowed to Ryan. The king's face remained unreadable. Then slowly he nodded. "Very well, the challenge is complete." The crowd erupted in cheers. Va ran to the arena.